Well, I'm excited for the next young man. His name is Elevenson. I've had the honor and the privilege of watching him grow up in the faith. And he has a powerful, powerful story that God has just really done some miraculous things in this young man's life. So would you please help me welcome Elevenson Acevedo. Did I say it right?
Yeah, you said it right. Good job. What's up, guys? Man, everybody that knows me knows I love doing stuff like this. It brings me so much joy to stand in front of a group of people and talk for 19 minutes and 35 seconds. Before we get into my story, I have a lot of filler just so I can waste 9 minutes and then run through the rest of it real fast so I don't have to go into any details about anything. My name is Elevenson. It's not sin. There's an O, Elevenson, but everybody says sin because I feel like it. If you were to look up that name on Google, it means nothing. I don't know where my parents came up with that. I can't ask them either. We'll get into that. I'm 21 years old, and I'm a web developer. It's not what I thought I'd be doing with my life. I thought I'd be playing football or something. Believe it or not, I was really good at it. I played defense. I was defensive MVP 2 times. So, yeah, I was really good when I was 8. Yeah. I really thought I was going to the NFL. I was like, man, this is it for me. And then I moved to Georgia, and I saw what they were feeding kids down here, and I was like, never mind. I'll figure something else out. Thought it'd be photography. Nope. Web development. It's fun. I'm from Pennsylvania, a town called Lancaster. Apparently it's like the 8th oldest town or city in Pennsylvania. I don't feel like anybody ever knew that or needed to know that. I didn't know that until I looked it up because I forgot how to spell it. I do love football. My favorite team is Philadelphia, the Philadelphia Eagles. Yeah, we don't need to applaud that. I don't feel like I'm watching football for the next few years. That's just a mess of an organization right now. But yeah, now that you know a few things about me, and you can tell that they only asked me to do this because I guess I'm kind of funny, I can get into what I feel like I should talk about. And leading up to this, because public speaking isn't really my thing, I was just like, I'm just gonna tell my story and I'll wing it and I'll figure it out. But I never really know what I'm going to say about my testimony. There's many ways I can say it. There's many things that I can get from it every time that I tell it to people. But this one time specifically, I didn't really know the overall thing that I wanted you guys to take away from what I was going to tell you until I was sitting there and I was listening, and God was like, I feel like you should talk about how your relationship with people, like your parents, your friends, spouses, whoever, how your relationship with those people can be a reflection of your relationship with me. And how that in and of itself has affected my life and my relationship with God growing up. Yeah, so my story begins before I was born. A lot of this stuff I was told by other people because, trauma, I blocked out half of my childhood. I don't really remember it. But my birth family was broken before I was born. My mom was Haitian American, but she had just came from Haiti. She didn't really understand English well, so she didn't really fit into America well. And she had 2 girls before she had me and my brother. And she had my brother with my birth dad, but he was different than my 2 older sisters' dad, if that makes sense. And before I was born, they had issues and they had to put their kids into foster care and work out their issues before they could have their kids back. And when they figured that stuff out, they got their kids back and they had me. So I kind of view myself as the person that brought my family back together before I was even born. I think it's really cool. But that was something that I got from my sister when I was talking to her recently. And I feel like I've always been a daddy's boy. I've always catered towards my dad, especially that's what I was told when I was younger. I would always be around my dad. I would always hang around him. I would never really care about my mom. And that was just who I was. And my dad would only care about me and my brother. He wouldn't care about my two older sisters because he didn't view them as his, which caused a lot of issues between him and my birth mom. It's like, these are your kids now. You should take care of them too. And he didn't, and they had issues, and she was misdiagnosed with things that she didn't have because she didn't really speak English well. And long story short, all of us end back up in foster care when I'm 2 years old. So I go to the same foster home as my brother, but not my two older sisters. They go to the same foster home. I would love to say that that's where the story just, gets better and everything's wonderful, but it doesn't. The first home was the worst. I remember we went to a cabin once, I was 3 maybe, and we were going downstairs. It was in the middle of the winter. It was really cold. It was in the morning. We were going downstairs for breakfast, and one of her birth kids didn't like me, and I don't know why. He just didn't, and he was just like, I'm going to push him down these stairs, and he did, and I fell all the way down the stairs, and she walks into the room, and she was like, why did you decide to fall down the stairs? And I was like, he pushed me. Did you not just see me fall down the stairs because he pushed me? She was like, no, and I got in trouble for it. I had to bring in wood. I didn't sleep in a bed that had a blanket that night. I hated that place. I hated it so much, and so did my brother. And he hated it so much that he wanted to get out so bad, he would purposefully be bad in order for them to move him to a new family. And he was successful. I wasn't. So I was stuck there for another year where he was off being happy somewhere else in a family that we're both with now, but he was happy and I was miserable. And eventually I got out of that home, but then I went to another one and another one and another one and another one. And you would think it was because I was a bad kid, but I wasn't. I was really sweet. It's just nobody wanted me. And eventually I came to a foster home. It was a nice foster home, and I was there for a year or two, and they were really nice to me, and I thought these would be the people that would end up adopting me, but they weren't, because God had other plans. I randomly went on a visit, because that's what you do in foster care when you have siblings and they don't want you to not know who your siblings are. The foster families will come together and you'll have visitation time so you can see your siblings. And I had a visit with my brother and his foster family, and my foster family and his foster family were really clicking, and it was the first time that I had seen him in 3 years, and it was really cool, really cool to be around him. And they asked me if I wanted to spend a week at their house, just to be around my brother, because I hadn't been around him in a long time. And I was like, yeah, I want to do that. And then a month later, I did that. It was awesome. I was super happy. Then I had to leave. I was super sad. I went back to life as usual. And then 6 months later, they asked me if I wanted to live with that foster family. And I was like, why is that a question? Of course I do. That's my brother. I haven't seen him in forever. I definitely want to live with him. And then I went to go live with that family, and then years go by, they adopt us, and we moved to Georgia. And, everything is wonderful. But something that I realized as I was, getting older and I was becoming more aware of who I was and the type of person I want to be and my personality and stuff, is I had a very difficult time, being emotionally available and emotionally interacting with people, and not just people, but my family. I couldn't do it. I didn't really laugh. I didn't really talk a lot. I was just kind of there all the time. That was just something that I realized as I got older and I became more and more aware. And that was just a trend throughout my life, where it's just I would just be there, but I wouldn't emotionally be there. And it got more and more difficult as I got older, because my dad always wanted to know what was wrong. I never talked to him. I never did anything with him. I never really hung around him. But he wanted to know, is he okay? Is he like depressed? Does he hate me? Does he not want to live here anymore? And like in my mind, I'm like, I'm perfectly fine. Like I'm chilling. There's no issue here, but I'm not communicating anything with my dad, and he just thinks there's something wrong. So he would do things intentionally to get a reaction out of me all the time. They didn't give me a phone until forever, so I just had like an iPod, and at 8 o'clock every night, he would shut off the Wi-Fi just to see how I would react. For no reason. It's not like I did anything. I was a good kid. No detention, didn't get suspended, kind of average grades. But he would turn off the Wi-Fi intentionally just to, is he alive? And I just wouldn't really react. I would react to myself in my room, but I would never say anything to him. And every time he would have a conversation with me, he would like eventually get to the point of like aggravation where it's like, are you even listening to anything that I'm saying? And then at that point, I'm just like shutting down completely because I'm not really listening to anything that he's saying anymore because I feel like he's attacking me because like he doesn't know where I am. And like that became like a symptom of my relationship with my dad throughout like high school, and it was terrible. Like I hated him for a while, and then I loved him, but like we never really communicated. And like looking back on it now, like I understand why I got like that. And I also understand why my relationship with my actual dad is a good representation of my relationship with God. Because I was having those same issues with God at the same time that I was having those issues with my dad. Because like when we moved to Georgia, we went to church every single week for years. We were always there, but like it was just kind of like a place that we went and I hung out and I was around friends and I did things sometimes and I would enjoy it and I would sing songs, but like I wasn't really like present. I wasn't with God. I didn't talk to God. I didn't pray. I didn't read my Bible. It was just a place I thought it was cool to go. It kept me a good person. But like my relationship with God at that time was exactly like my relationship with my dad, where I wasn't communicating with him at all. And I was comfortable with it because that was my zone where I felt safe. And the reason why I got like that was because when I was younger, I was very close to my dad. I was glued to his hip the entirety of the time that I was growing up until I was 2. And then that was just taken away from me. And from 2 to like 6 or 7, I didn't have a solid father figure in my life, like at all. So in my mind, I was like, I gotta take care of myself. I gotta preserve myself. I got to always be strong and, not make everything seem more than it actually is. So now I have this super nonchalant personality where nothing seems bigger than it is, and I'm super monotone all the time, and I'm dry and sarcastic. But that was a product of me feeling like I have to always be okay. And I can't like go to anybody about anything. I can't talk to my mom. I can't talk to my dad because it shouldn't be that big of a deal. Because if it is that big of a deal, then things might not be okay anymore. And that's how I treated my relationship with God for so long, where it was like, I know I can go to God with this, and I know I can pray about it, and it's going to get better, but I know I can just be with God and I'll feel okay now, but it shouldn't be that big of a deal, so I'm not. I'm just not going to do it. And then when I'm fine, then I'll pray and I'll act like it was God, and God was there for me, and I went to God and everything was awesome. But in reality, I was just really struggling through everything by myself, all alone, and I did the same thing with my parents. In school, if I was struggling with something, if I needed to go somewhere, if I needed money for something, I wouldn't ask them, because it'd be like, if I can't figure it out myself, then what point is there? What point is there to it? There is no point to it. And it wasn't until like I realized like my relationship with God is never going to get better if I don't like figure out how to have a relationship with the people in my life. And that's never going to get better until I don't learn how to have a relationship with God. and actually have a relationship with God and like talk to him and not feel like everything has to be okay all the time and I have to be perfect and I have to be happy and everything's going to work out once I start doing it, because that's not the case. But I have to be able to like communicate and actually talk with him, and like vice versa, it'll work better with my dad. And like with anything, it's good to have a scripture that you can go back to and you can stand on whenever like your conviction is like being shook by things in life. And I was trying to figure out something that like represented how I've felt my whole life about my relationship with my dad, my relationship with God, and like my struggle of being perceived as being weak or not being strong enough to handle things in life. And I came to 2 Corinthians 12, verse 9 through 10, and it says, but he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me. For the sake of Christ, then I am content with weakness, insults, hardships, persecution, and calamities. For when I am weak, then I'm strong. And sometimes that's like really hard for me to like suck it up and listen to and hear. It's like I want to be like, nah, man, I have to be strong all the time. And then when things work out, I can be like, man, I was strong the whole time and I did it. And my conviction was never shook. I never doubted myself, and I did it. I stuck through. But that isn't what God wants from us. He wants us to come to him whenever like we're weak and we have nothing else. Like nothing else is gonna work. And honestly, he wouldn't even want us to wait until then. He doesn't want us to wait until we have nothing else and we've wasted all of our resources and we've tried everything and nothing else has worked. He wants us to go to him immediately, where it's like, man, I got fired and I lost my job. All right, I'm gonna go pray and figure it out. I'm not gonna stress about it. It sucks and I'm at a low point right now and I need to figure this out, but I'm gonna pray and I'm gonna go to God first. And it's not even just going to God, it's going to people too, and not just doing it alone, having people in your life that can build you up. And like my father is a good example for me, just because that's where I've struggled most. Like my relationship with other people, I mean, I've never been perfect at it, but it's never been like a struggle for me like it was with my dad, because that's more intimate. That's like a deeper connection that people have, that they have with their father. But like, it's the same thing with people. It's like, your relationship with people is always going to struggle if you're unable to like go to them and feel comfortable going to them and being real with them about everything, about the things that you struggle with, the things that you're embarrassed to struggle with. Like, we all struggle with things, and we've probably all struggled with the same things, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you don't feel comfortable enough to be able to go and talk to people about it, you're not going to be able to talk to God about it. Especially if it's God's people, you're not going to be able to do it. And then you're just going to be carrying that burden for no reason. And it's not like it's something that God doesn't know. He just wants you to tell him. You know, like with my dad, it's crazy the amount of things that they know about me that I didn't know that they knew. It's not like I told them, but they're my parents and they know. Like, I was sick with a stomach bug on Wednesday. I thought I wasn't going to be here, but I am. And I haven't thrown up since 5th grade. So that's 10 years that it's been since I've thrown up. And I tell my friends that because I think it's an accomplishment. I'm really proud of it. I mean, I think it's really cool that it's been 10 years since I've thrown up, but I don't really talk to my parents about that. And I drank a little bit of green tea, and I threw up all over my girlfriend's floor. And it was so gross, and it was so embarrassing because I was there alone, so I had to clean it myself. Oh, God, this sucks so bad. It's nothing more embarrassing than just throwing up on the floor and looking at it and being like, I gotta clean that. Just me. I'm here alone. I gotta do it. I threw up 3 times on Wednesday, and I came home And I told my mom, and I was like, yeah, I think I got the stomach bug. I threw up like 3 times. She was like, oh my God, are you okay? I was like, well, yeah, I am now. She's like, yeah, you never throw up. You haven't thrown up in a very long time. You haven't been that sick in a very long time. And I was like, why do you know that? When have I ever told you that? I'm never home. I haven't been home for more than like 6 hours since 11th grade. Why do you know that information about me? But it's because she's my mom, and she cares about me, and she's been there my entire life. And God's the same way, where he's been there the entire time. And he knows things about me, but that doesn't mean he's going to just tell me all the time. Sometimes it takes you coming to God and being like, hey, there's this thing, and it sucks. And I wish I didn't have to tell you, and I know that you already know, but it's a thing and it sucks. And he's like, okay, all right, cool. Now I can actually do something about it because you're willingly coming to me and allowing me to change it for you. Anyways, I can go on a whole nother tangent about that. That's really just the gist of what I wanted to say. Is you got to be careful and pay attention to your relationship with God and how it affects your relationship with people.